Hello and welcome to tonight's Truth Proof live stream. My name is Les from Digital Creations, bringing you this stream tonight. And I gotta say, I'm quite surprised. Plenty of people have come onto the chat tonight to look into the stream. It looks like we've got Steve Trees, David, Bridget Van Bosch, Daniel Farrell, Ralph Winter, Matt Saylor. I've got to say, welcome everybody to tonight's live stream, because we know there's a lot of celebrations going on this week, and today is probably the day where everybody is out celebrating and drinking and at the pub. So, for those of you who've made it tonight, welcome. So, without further ado, I think what we'll do is I'll hand it over to Paul to introduce tonight's guest.
Thank you very much, Les. Here we are again. This is the third week. We've had a couple of weeks off, as everyone knows. Let's hope we can get back to normal. And I'm absolutely delighted tonight to be speaking to a man I consider a friend, as well as a brilliant investigator, researcher. Don't get as much credit as what he deserves. Scott Santa. Scott, welcome to Truth Proof.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome, mate. Now, there'll be people on the chat and people look at this afterwards who will know who you are. But for those who don't know who you are, you've had 2 decades in the past as a Mufon investigator, as well as your own experiences, stroke sightings. And do you want to give us a little bit of background information about Scott before we go into them?
Sure.
If you would.
I'm originally from Ohio here. And I joined this is after, let me back up here. I joined the service, the United States Coast Guard, in 1979. This is after my first experience. And I really did it just to get out of town because I was spinning my wheels. I wasn't going anywhere fast. I thought, well, I need to get a job. I need to learn how to do something. All right. 3 years of college was a wipeout for me. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I joined the service. I enlisted, and I ended up doing 20 years. I made a career out of it. It wasn't my intention going in, but I learned a trade, and I did good at it. And before I knew it, they were handing me my papers saying, thank you.
Yeah.
I did 20 years. 1979 to 1999 in the U.S. Coast Guard. I was a radioman. I was a Morse code operator and message traffic. I did crypto work. I carried a top secret SCI clearance for 18 years. Let me back that up by saying I've never seen anything classified.
Yeah.
Dealing with UFOs. So.
Yeah.
After that, I retired, got my retirement, and then I became a letter carrier for the United States Postal Service. So I delivered mail for almost 16 years. Then I had a mild stroke, and I was medically retired from the post office.
Okay.
I've gotten much better. I had some difficulties, problems and stuff, but everything seems to have leveled out, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
So I've been, 2014 is when I left the Postal Service, and I've been retired since then and just enjoying all my books.
Yeah, well, it's an active, hard-working life then, Scott. Just to wind back to the Coast Guard, and I know that you said that there were nothing UFO related, but I don't know whether you've heard me going on about I'm very close. I'm literally about 200 yards from North Sea. So we've got Coast Guard logs and lifeboat logs that have got lots of reports of these call outs to suspected flares, boats in distress, planes in distress. And these are the lights that I'm trying to document, and it gets put down as false alarm with good intent. Did you come across that kind of thing?
All the time. It's probably the same here as it is for you over there, as far as reports goes. Seeing stuff. What's that?
What do you think, Scott? When I mean, I don't, if anything at all. When lifeboats being sent out, Coast Guard's gone out. I don't know protocol where you are, but I'm talking about where we are, and you've got massive sea searches with multiple agencies for different lifeboat locations, and then it just goes down as false alarm with good intent. Have you give that a lot of thought that something's been seen here? There's enough tangible evidence to launch these craft, these boats, and it costing a lot of money, and then all of a sudden we just put a blanket statement out that covers it. Do you think that we should be doing more and a more explanation? Or as a man who's worked there, what do you think?
Well, they have a saying in the Coast Guard: you have to go out, but you don't have to come back. Okay, which is not really true. The first part is we do have to go out. You have to take the reports and follow them up.
Yeah,
you have to. You just can't say you're seeing stuff. You don't know. You got to go out there. So we launch every time, unless, of course, we already know what it is.
Yeah.
And then it's called further action suspended pending further developments.
Yeah,
that's what they say. We don't find anything. We come back and we just goes in the gray box unless something comes along to reopen it.
The reason I'm sort of pushing it is I'm curious with your background, and if you've considered that some of this, let's assume the suspected flare activity, distress flares, and you've got logs that are showing all this. If you've ever pursued it, and because you've probably got more access to look at this stuff than what I would have with your background, and seeing whether there's any patterns forming, and see, is it something that you've not looked into?
It was hard for me to actually look into it while I was in the Coast Guard. I did what I could when I was at sea, and but everything's so fast moving. You go out, you do your search, boom, you get another case, you go back out, and all of a sudden, you've done it.
Yeah, do you know, this is about you, Scott, but I just sort of labour on this for a moment. When I was looking into what I've called the Wilsthorpe incident, and I think you've read it in one of the books, a Coast Guard friend of mine actually looked into some of the files for me, and they pulled him over the coals, should we say, when this, because it sort of the next working day, asking him why he'd been looking, because he'd been looking in protected archive. And that's why I knew they were another witness to Wilsthorpe. But I can't get at it, but I know what they witnessed and everything else. But I just wonder how much of that is suppressed. And one of the Coast Guard said to me, you will never find a report that says anything like unexplained lights, unexplained phenomena, UFO, for want of another word. And I don't know how true it is where you are. It says, but we're trained in what not to say and what to say. Is it similar protocol?
It's the exact same. Same. Because message traffic, I had to type up the message that was drafted and send it out to where it was going to go. And that's just not a willy-nilly thing that somebody just drafts up. It's written up, it's passed around, it's read, it's edited, and it goes through a lot before it actually comes to me, and I send it out where it has to go.
Yeah.
So the wording is careful, always.
It's got to be, I suppose. Yep. So, Scott, I don't know where you want to go with this. Do you want to start with your own experiences, or what got you? First of all, what got you so interested, so entrenched in the subject? Was it childhood?
Yes. To be honest, it just seems like I was born with this interest, particular interest. I don't know how else to put it. And maybe I was 8, 1963, 64. I saw a movie on TV, and it was called UFO. It's the 1956 black and white movie about UFO. And I saw that, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
What is this? Aliens from space? You know, what could it be? You know, I'm a young kid. I'm just thinking this is for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that I've always had the interest, but you know, as it grew older, it started to wane a little bit. And you know, you have other interests when you're growing up. And
what about your parents? Did they have an interest in it?
yes, yeah, my dad was a huge science fiction reader. You know, he turned me on to Dune, all the classics.
Yeah.
He'd leave his books laying around, and I would pick it up, and they have all those wonderful cover art on those books, and I would just like, oh, this looks really cool. Yeah. Try to read it, and I didn't understand what was going on. You know.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, looking at all them books behind you, Scott, and I urge anybody who's written a book on UFOs who listens to this podcast afterwards or today to contact Scott, because he'll not give you a brilliant review, but he'll give you an honest review. I think that's what I would probably say, Scott. And not only are you known for your interest in the UFOs and your research, but actually because of the amount of material that you've actually read and digested, and it's far more than me.
Well, I keep everything. All right. I've got just tons of stuff
Yeah.
in boxes, and surprisingly enough, I read Richard Dolan's first book, and then I started an email. This is back before there was just email, telephone, and writing letters. So I started an email correspondence with him. And one day he put out a feeler. He was writing his second volume, UFOs and the National Security State. And he was asking for some certain material. I had it.
Yeah.
So I emailed him back, and he was just ecstatic. He's like, "Can I borrow it?" I said, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
So I put it in a big box, and I mailed it off to him. And he ended up putting me in the acknowledgement section of that book in the back as contributing to my library to his. Yeah. So I'm very proud of that. I toot that horn whenever I have an opportunity.
No, it's brilliant. I mean, because the man's renowned and respected within the subject, and to get that kind of, you know, accreditation, it's absolutely great. Have you helped any other writers, stroke researchers?
No, it's just Richard. Actually, he wrote his latest book, Alien Agendas, and he put me in there too.
Yeah.
So it was probably something, because he asked for something specific, which I had, and I threw a bunch of other stuff in there with him. I'm sending him this big box, and I just piled a bunch of stuff in there. And, you know, I said, this stuff you can have. I want the other stuff back. So he probably saved that and ended up using it in his second book. I had no idea until I actually got the book. I said, oh my God, there's my name in the back. Cool.
Brilliant. I'd just like to throw it out to listeners that anybody who's got any questions, I don't mean absolutely obscure, but UFO related that you might not normally ask, put them out there, because Scott might have some knowledge on it. And I don't know, Scott, do you want to tell us about any of your sightings experiences?
I'll start with the big one, the one that really opened it wide for me.
Brilliant.
It was 1974. A friend of mine and myself decided, I don't remember the day, I'm sure it was a weekend, that we were going to go to the drive-in movies. We had nothing else going on, no girlfriends, nothing at that time. So let's just go. We'll kill a night there. Okay, fine. We get to the movie, cruise around. We're looking for carload of girls, you know, that type thing, and always park in the back. So you could drink or do whatever. So the sun's just about set. It's a beautiful summer evening. I mean, beautiful. Nothing. You could see everything. So I'm sitting there watching the cartoons come on. You know, they show Tom and Jerry or whatever before the actual movie. And right about then, it's just starting. It's twilight. It's almost dark, not quite. As I'm looking at the screen, well, let me back up here. In front of the screen, there's a little playground for the kids to play on before the movie starts and stuff like that. So there's kids all over the place. As I'm looking at the screen, all of a sudden I see this big, long, black line. And I was dumbfounded. I was like, what is that? Yep. And well, it turned out this big doesn't do it justice. It was probably 4 or 5 times the size of the drive-in. It was just huge. And it was just low. It was right over the screen. It just, you know, you wanted to go like this, even in your car. Well, it was as it came over, I could see it was a boomerang. There was no lights. It was completely black. And it seemed to be floating. Okay. You couldn't hear any engines. You couldn't hear nothing. All of a sudden, the cartoon, boom, all the power went out. Okay. And I could see people scrambling. The kids are running back, and I could see people leaning out, looking up. And as it got over, I got out of my car. I mean, I got out of my car. What is, you know, you're speechless.
Well,
I don't even know what to say. So I'm looking at this. As I look at it, you start to feel, it's since been described as the Oz effect. I could see the air around me was shimmering, kind of like wavy. And, you know, my ears popped. I could still hear, but you got this ringing in your ears, you know, and you're trying to yawn to make it pop your ears back so you could see. The whole time I'm just standing, the car door is here, and I'm just standing there looking at this thing. You know, they got gravel all over. If I would have picked up a piece of gravel and thrown it at this thing, I swear I would have hit it. That's how low it was. And it just dwarfed everybody. Okay, everything's black. There's no noise. There's nothing. I can't even hear people talking. And I'm just stunned. I'm absolutely stunned. And this thing is maybe going 5 miles an hour. It's going real slow. And I suspect, I can't tell you for sure, I suspected it hovered there longer than I was aware. Okay. I'm watching it, and I'm turned around now, and I'm watching it go over me, watching it leave towards the back of the drive-in. And still, the air isn't right. I still can't hear very well. I don't even remember talking to my friend. I don't know. I know my eyes were glued on this thing. And I watched it. When I got over the back end of the driveway or the drive-in theater, movies came on. Lights on the concession stand, back on. All right. And I watched this thing I swear I watched it for 15 minutes. That's how slow it was going. And it never wavered. Didn't go up, it didn't go down. It just went straight. And I watched it till I couldn't see it anymore. So, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say we need to let you finish because I was going to ask you what the general opinion were of the people afterwards. But carry on, Scott. Sorry.
So I turned back around and I just, like a robot, got back in my car and started to watch the movie. Like nothing happened. Okay. It's this, It's the absolute strangest thing when I was able to reflect on it. So maybe, I don't know how long, few minutes, I decided I needed to go to the bathroom. So I get out, I walk to the concession stand, and everybody seemed like they were zombies. Nobody was talking to everybody. Hey, do you see that? What the hell was that thing? Nothing. No conversations. Nothing. I mean, I myself, I didn't even think enough to prod somebody. Did you see that? What was it? I went in, did my business, walked back to my car, and I don't remember leaving. I have no idea what happened after I got back to my car. So over the years, I've suspected something may have happened. You know, you would think everybody be out of the cars doing flips and flops, and people doing that stuff. Nothing.
Have you managed to speak to anybody who were there, Scott? Have you spoke to anyone who was there? 1977, you said. I mean, how many people were actually watching the movie? 50, 100, 20?
No, I have never. I've thought about it. You know, 5 years later, I was in the service and gone. And and I think about this thing almost every day.
Yeah.
And have since that day. It's always flying in my head. And no, I did, you know, and then I got distracted for a couple years. I ended up in a bookstore, and I saw Rappelt's book, The Report on Unidentified Flying Officers. Oh, I picked that up, and boom, all of a sudden I remembered this thing. I forgot it for 4 or 5 years. I never talked to anybody about it. It's just like it didn't happen. It's the bizarrest thing. Of course, knowing myself, if I would have remembered, I would have went home and told my dad. I would have been blabbing it to everybody. Nope, that's not what happened. It's the strangest thing. So then I got diverted into my career in the military. And that's when I started to read and collect books on the subject.
Yeah.
I've thought, and I don't know how quite to approach this, maybe some of the listeners can give me ideas. I've thought about putting an ad in the paper, but I'm afraid, I don't know what kind of response I would get. And I don't know if I want to open myself up to somebody that might not have been there, but was just trying to insert themselves into my story or whatever. Here's the second thing. I'm also, my report has made it into 2 books. Okay. Ryan Sprague's Somewhere in the Skies. My sighting is chronicled in there. And Preston Dennett wrote a book.
I knew you were going to say Preston Dennett. Yeah, we had him on. And he didn't talk about your sighting, but he did talk
about over drive-in movies. He wrote a book. Apparently it's a thing. But Ryan Sprague got an email from a woman that said, I read your book, and I think I saw what that man reported. So I was like, oh my God. And he gave her my email address, and, please contact Scott, and we could compare notes and stuff. Crickets. She never contacted me, and she will not. The email address that she used to contact Ryan, no longer in use.
There's gotta be people out there, Scott. There's gotta be. And I know you said you don't want to open yourself up to it, and I'm not the person to say, oh, you should. But I think by sheer virtue of the fact that you think about this every day, and I don't mean it's troubling you, but you're in awe of what you saw, even now. And it's kind of begging for more answers. There's pieces of that puzzle that other people could help you with, I think. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know. We've no idea what they'd say unless anyone came forward, but there might just be some things there. Just like when you said you opened that report up and bang, it all come back to you.
That's how it happened.
Yeah, there could be more information ready to come back to you. You know, it's all. I find the amnesia, if that's what we want to call it, absolutely fascinating. That you went home and never said a word.
It's just like 5 years of a dark hole.
Yeah. It's not crazy. Crazy is just a word that I'm using when I say that's crazy, because
Yeah.
It's a pattern that's, as you know, we all stuff that you've read. It's a pattern that seems to repeat itself in much of this genre, and it's a fabulous sighting. You know, when you from first seeing it, and you might not be able to answer this, to it actually passing over the top, how long do you think it took?
Maybe 15 minutes. That's how slow it was going. It was hardly moving. I mean, it was moving, but something was going on. It was scanning. And you know what? I've done a search of the newspapers.
Nothing.
There's nothing there.
And would you describe its color as graphite colored or black?
Pitch black, dark black. No lights, no sound, but a definite boomerang shape. But big. I mean, it was huge.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just blows me away to this day.
Well, I can tell, you know, all them years later.
I've considered regression, but the problem is finding somebody in my area that could do that, you know. And you know, you get back to I'm pretty sure something happened other than me just looking at that thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it happened to just me or did it happen to everybody in the drive-in. I don't know. I could only guess. But I have that little itch in the back here that says there's something else associated with this encounter.
Well,
but I don't know what it is.
Well, you're talking about, you know, 1977, so 40 odd years ago. But in 2014, there were a huge boomerang shaped object. It was a graphite grey colour. It was seen on a place called Valley Bridge in Scarborough, and the Scarborough Evening News wrote about it in the paper. And then a couple who'd been to a school in a place called Kate, and I realise you'll not know these locations, Scott, but for our listeners, some of them might. And they were driving home in evening. They took their son to some school meeting or something, and they saw it. And they had a farm at Hunmanby, and he rang his mum and his dad and said, "You better look out of go outside now. There's a huge, strange-shaped object travelling towards the farm." And Mum and Dad went out, and it was going into the distance. Now, there's a few similarities here, because the neighbouring farm had a wind turbine, and they rang I've spoken to all three farmers, and they rang the guy with the wind turbine, and it stopped his wind turbine as it passed over. The wind turbine stopped, and then it carried on, and the next farm. I could actually set names that are made as clear as day, but I don't think it's necessary. I put it in the book. I think it's in book 2. The next farm that it passed over, the family had a child's toy train, a sit-on one that had lots of sort of bells and whistles, but it wasn't working, and it was for sale on eBay. And as this thing passed over, the train come to life. Things started working on it, lights started flashing on it. So we'd got all these strange. So Mum and Dad at Hunmanby Farm had missed it, and it had passed into the distance. Son gets home with his son. They discuss it in a farmhouse, and then later that night they go out for a cigarette. I think it was father, grandfather, and young son. And as they're outside, just having a cigarette, it's December 2014. They look up, silent, and it's above them. They claim it weren't much higher than the farmhouse roof, and it's monstrous. But they said it had lots and lots of very small lights on it, which you didn't describe lights, but they described an electrical type feeling coming from it.
Yes.
And they watched this thing for quite a long time until it just slowly disappeared into distance. I mean, we're not talking 1977, we're talking 2014, but there's a few similarities there, Scott.
There is. It's almost like this object was, as it approaches and goes over, it just clears a path.
Yeah.
Shuts everything down. You can't do anything but look at it. There's nobody's honking horns. All lights are gone. Nope. I'm not seeing cars start up and take off. Maybe a couple did, but the fact that when it got over the top of the screen, doof, everything shut down. Just like a switch was.
So,
And
excuse me. So, if I don't choke. So, the guy with you, I know you've said you never spoke about it.
no,
Did he never mentioned it either?
no. Shortly thereafter, I lost contact with him. He was more of an acquaintance than he was a real friend that I hung out with all the time. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to him.
I think it's begging for answers, Scott. I think it's begging for a little bit more information, don't you?
Well, if he's alive, probably. I would think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, it's just affects different people different ways.
What?
A lot of people don't. Never saw it. I
Yep.
don't want to visit that again.
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're saying there. So over the years, then you'll have given it a lot of thought. What it could have been? Was it ours? Was it from somewhere else? What are your views on that? I know you can't answer that, but
Right.
what's your gut feeling?
I don't think it was ours.
No.
This is 1974, and there's nothing like that.
No. Well,
Not that big. I mean, we have the Horton flying wing. The Horton brothers had a flying wing and stuff like that, but not that size.
No.
And it couldn't fly that slow. If it was like I said, the impression I had was it was floating, not flying. And it's a very, and the words are hard to describe, but that's the impression I had. And I was more in awe of this thing. I wasn't scared. I wasn't frightened. I had I didn't have the feeling like I need to get out of here and run away. My jaws just opened, and I'm glued. I'm lasered in on this thing, and it seems to me I never took my eye off it.
No.
I have no idea how much time actually passed. I don't know, because I don't remember what happened to me after I came back from the concession stand.
It's a fabulous sighting. It's absolutely incredible. And what do you think then, just to jump away from your sighting, unless you've any more to add to it, what do you think then to the flying triangles that were seen in the 1990s? Have you views on them as regards whether they're man-made or something other?
I don't think they're man-made. That's
No.
That's my opinion, but not the way that they've reported characteristics of what they do and the effect that they have on people.
No, I would agree.
Difference between seeing something, maybe you can't describe it, and thinking, oh, that's just a plane or something like that. But when these people see something like that, it's totally out of their frame of reference, to the point where they can't even speak. They don't know what to say. That means something else is going on here.
Yeah, I would agree. And I know the triangles were the 1990s primarily, but we had John Hanson on here a few months ago, the guy who writes the Haunted Skies books, and he's probably got the biggest archive of UFO related literature and documents in the United Kingdom, and he's just started a museum. So we ought to do a little plug for John Hanson at some point, Les, if possible. The Haunted Skies Museum, I think that's what he's calling it. But he's got police officer reports from 1909 that are describing black triangles.
That's right. I think whatever they are, they've been here probably forever.
Yeah, it really is. And you would think, I know there's a lot of people want to subscribe to the idea that it's some kind of military technology, but even 1990s, we're still going back over 30 years, say, or 30 years. You would think that if this is some secret technology, it would be getting put to good use in today's, military, should we say?
Exactly. Whoever's operating these vehicles, for want of a better word, any country that has that at their disposal is going to rule the globe.
Yeah, totally silent, fly away at incredible speeds. And in some instances, people are describing them as large as football fields.
Yes.
Carry a lot of people, should we say? Do you know what I mean? Unless it's just made of rubber and floating, So it's an incredible thing. So we'll do your other talk about your other sighting in a moment, Scott. But working for Mufon for over 20 years, and I know you were keen to say that a lot of it was telephone conversations.
Yeah.
But have you got any cases that you'd like to discuss?
Not really. Here's the thing. It was, even though I was considered an investigator because I was in the military when I joined.
Yeah.
And I had to move every couple of years. And so I was really never able to establish myself in one place. I was 3 years, boom, move on, you're someplace else. So I got a whole new gang of MUFON people to meet. And I don't know the area. I don't know
Yeah.
So it's real difficult. I just pretty much just put myself at their disposal. If you need me to make phone calls, or if somebody has a case, they live next door to me or something like that, I will help you. Yeah.
What are you doing?
I get a bunch of phone calls and talk to people, but even then, some people would say, yeah, you can have an investigator call me. And you get on the phone with them and they'll talk to you a little bit, very hesitantly.
Yeah.
And then you'd say, well, I'd like to meet. And nope, not going to go any farther than this phone call. Forget it. I really shouldn't even be talking to you.
It's very strange, isn't it? I've had people contact me, Scott, and they've absolutely been full on enthusiastic. They've found me, and I don't mean that you give them your time, because that's what I want to do anyway. I want this information, and you assure them that you're going to be discreet if they don't want the names using and everything. But then all of a sudden, it's just closed down. You get nothing. It's just
That's it.
And it's their choice. It's up to the individual. And I've no axe to grind with anybody for doing that. But as a researcher, or as somebody who's really interested, and you can see that what they're telling you ties in with other things, it's really frustrating. But when it happens,
it is, and that's possibly the worst thing you could do, is to try and push it.
Yes, I agree.
The harder you push, and that's it. It's over.
The more resistance, the more resistance you're gonna encounter. Exactly. So, jumping from UFO situation scenario reports temporarily, then what about ghosts, hauntings, and poltergeists? Have you any interest in that?
I was a member of a local group here in Ohio called the Monroe Falls Paranormal Society, and I went on some ghost hunts with them. And it's not like it is on TV.
No. and did you experience anything?
I had something. It's on film somewhere. I was in a room by myself, and I had this white blob come down and hover around my head. I didn't know it at the time.
No.
And then I felt a touch, and you could see me on camera going, looking around. What was that? And that white thing was just going like this. I couldn't see it.
No.
Camera picked it up, but I felt something touched me back there, and it jives with the thing you could see on the camera at that point, and off it went. And that was it. And nothing ever came of it, but something happened there. Something a little weird. Yeah.
And do you do you think there's a connection to the paranormal, the ghost activity, the spirit activity, and UFOs? I don't necessarily mean that actually that they're married up, but do you think there's somewhere within it all, within the mix, there is a connection, some kind of enabler, should we say, that's allowing this thing, the same thing with UFOs, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, I think it was Jacques Vallée said there's no such thing as paranormal. This is all normal.
Yeah.
It's been with us forever.
No, I would sort of echo what he's saying. Yeah, I would think that's right. And I hope we've got a few questions in the chat. I'm sure Les might have a few, and because then we'll get to your other account. If we can, have we any questions, Les?
Yeah, sure. And a great show up to now, guys. Thank you very much, Scott, for coming onto the show. And I've got a question from Al, and it is for Scott. What can you tell us about the Catalina Island or the Santa Barbara undersea anomaly? Do you know anything about that, Scott?
I'm aware of it. I know what he's talking to. I know what he's referring to. But other than that picture, the undersea picture where it looks like there's a cavern or a structure, I should say, under there, there's no way to tell what that is unless, we catch something going in and out of it or actually flying down into it. And it wouldn't surprise me, how they say the best place to hide on this planet is underwater.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have it mapped out. We don't know what's down there. And I'm almost sure, can't say it for certain, but my money would be on, they're down there too. Get the UFO reports on underwater objects moving real fast and stuff. What do they call it? Oh, there's my dog. Transmedium, comes out of the water, goes back in, flies out, runs around, boom, in the water, gone.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt, Scott. They've had
it makes perfect sense that's what would be underwater.
And no doubt, Scott, they've had lots of submersibles under there or whatever they need to get a closer look. But there's no entrance or exits on that structure, is there?
No. Not that we can really tell for sure. But would it surprise me? No, not in the least.
So has investigation into it been ceased now? Has it given up?
I don't know for sure. I can't tell you that for sure.
I mean, we've got off East Yorkshire coast, myself and Bob Brown, we've got images not underwater but of lights under the water from above the cliff tops. I mean, in a triangle formation, Scott. I realise 3 of anything is going to be a triangle, but they look pretty well shaped triangle. God knows what that could have been, because the water were only about 60 foot deep where we were looking at them. And we've got footage of an object in 2018, August of 2018, traveling from a place called Filey, which is about 6 miles away from where we were, that came out of the water and traveled along the coast and came in towards us. I don't think it came in because we were there, by the way, Scott, but it came in towards us and re-entered the water. I mean, Les has seen footage, and I think there'll be a few people in chat that's seen footage. It's not the smoking gun, Scott, but it's definitely a white sphere that's traveling along the coast and goes back down into the water. So it's better than a light on a velvet black background. Let's put it that road. We've got some reference points. Right. So, yeah, the sea probably is the best place for these things to hide. And what were the term you used? In and out of the water. What did you say just then?
Transmedium.
Transmedium, yeah.
Maybe in the vacuum of space, they can fly around the atmosphere, and they can go in the water at will and without effect.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So
I've even read reports of craft going into the water and not making a splash.
Yeah.
It just boom, they just disappear into the water.
And
no bubbles, no foam, no splash. So
and I've read, and I don't know how much. I'm not a man of science, so I can't really say much other than that these things probably aren't even wet when they're in the water, because they're creating this field around the object itself that's just pushing forward through the water. I mean, how we can, I'm saying it, I know, but how we can say it without any knowledge? There must be something out there, some science behind what these people are saying. Let's put it that way, for them to be able to do that.
Has to be. To be.
Okay, then, Les.
Yes, thanks for that. Andy Ross, Ghost Whisperer, is asking Scott, what are your thoughts on ATIP and on the recent Congress discussion and the release of the Tic Tac and other videos?
I'm glad the videos were released. That was huge. I think it was bigger than everybody realizes. For the Pentagon to come out and say, yeah, it's all real. We confirm those videos. As far as the UAP task force, I'm divided. I'm split with myself. I'm glad they had the hearing, and they mentioned some things I never thought we would hear from a congressional. Well, it's not really a hearing, but a congressional session. Some of the words that came out of their mouth, I never thought I would hear them talk about. ET. It's just, I'm glad that they did that, and a lot of people have seen it. But I don't hold out hope that that's gonna bust it wide open. I know Steve Bassett thinks it's the greatest thing that's ever happened, but we've been burned so many times as the public, and even researchers and readers. Maybe this is it. Maybe somebody who's in charge is going to come out and say it.
Do you think
say it? But I don't hold out hope for that. It's that complex that Richard Dolan talks about. It's never going to happen, but it's inevitable, right?
Do you think that there's something that they had to do, simply because we are becoming more aware, we are becoming more accepting of the fact that this phenomena is real? Not just you, Les, people in this chat who've probably experienced, and most people in the chat will have done. Probably that's why they're here now. They're looking for answers. But public at large, people are starting to realize that there is a reality to this. Do you think they've just moved goalposts and just given us a little bit more?
Exactly what I think happened. I mean, really, if you think about this, the only really smart way is to handle it now that those videos are out and people are going, at least from my point of view, and I think a lot of others, is to get in front of this thing and try to manage it now.
Yeah.
Right? Let's try to let's grab control of this subject again and slow it down, and not just come out and do the disclosure that everybody's hoping for. So it's a whole new game is being played with regard to this. But
what about the people?
Something really, really big to bust it open. And why wouldn't those films have busted it open, right? Yeah. Or all the documentations, for crying out loud, the documentations like Richard Dolan has written about, the military encounters. You scratch your head. How has this just been glossed over and pushed aside all these years? It's staring us right in the face. Right?
It's crazy, isn't it, when you think that there's so much out there now, and there's so many people within authority saying that it's real, yet the public at large, it's almost as though we're kind of complacent. And we've not. I don't know whether we're not absorbing it. We're not absorbing the truth. Whether we're not bothered. They're not bothered about the reality of it. I don't know. It's was dumbed down in a way. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think too, a lot of, of course, everybody's got to live their lives and earn their money and do their keep. But I think in large part, many people just want to be led and told.
Yeah.
And then tell me that they're here. Okay. Moving on.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sure that's not what's going to happen when it happens, if it happens, but it's too much going on. And I just can't see this, now we had COVID, now we have the Ukraine situation. And I just don't think UFOs are going to push that aside.
No, I would agree.
Just the way things are going. I'm glad these hearings were done. The UAP task force was done, but what's happened after that? We're right back where we were.
Yeah, it's like we've been told it, we've absorbed it, and move along. Let's carry on. It's really it's a shame, really, but that's where we are with it, isn't it? So, what about cases then, Scott? And Les wants to. Oh, we're not up to a break yet, are we? What about any famous cases or really historic cases, should we say, that have interested you over the years? Like the Rendlesham Forest, Pascagoula, Roswell.
All
of them.
Good cases. All good cases. And I don't know what I could say that hasn't already been said about it, right?
Well, just start with Rendlesham.
Yeah.
Because we're here in the UK, but you've got some knowledge of it, and it met an American military base, weren't it? So, what's your views on it?
This is a hard one. This
Okay.
is a really hard one. Like I said, I've spoken to Mr. Peniston, and it's different when you read about it and when you sit in front of somebody and you talk to them about it.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Jim Peniston is fabricating or lying, or I just think he's telling it like it happened to him.
Yeah.
Of course, over the years, you start to pile on stuff because you're thinking about it all the time, and then things can get smoky and cloudy, and it's hard to pare away garbage. But I think deep down, it's just what he said happened is the way it happened. And I don't think they were laser games or what's the word I'm looking for? Holograms.
Yeah. And
I'm not buying that.
No.
No, I just think that for me, that's deflection. They're trying to deflect. Let's not listen to what the guy says. Let's tell them what he saw.
Yeah.
And that's not right.
And it's not going away. It's never gone away, and it's not going away, is it? I mean, I don't know whether you've met Colonel Holt.
No, I haven't.
I've met him a few times, and when John Hanson brought him over once, and Chris Evers brought him over for a conference, and he speaks forcefully and very clear about what he saw in that forest. I mean, and I can't speak for him, but after listening to what he'd got to say, I don't think he thinks it was anything that was man-made, and I think he's pretty certain. So I can't speak for him, but what he saw was something absolutely real, not some hologram, not some illusion, not some lighthouse. And when you've got somebody of his caliber, and you've got, like you said, Jim Peniston, and you've got all the other military personnel, and we know that some of them are singing from a different hymn sheet, but that you yourself, Scott, and many other people listening to this know that that's not necessarily always a bad thing, because you can get multiple witnesses looking at something and they see something different.
Yes.
Even though we're all agreed that we're looking at this object, they're having a different experience. Because I think, was it John Burroughs were with Jim Penniston, and they've got a different take on it. But that don't necessarily mean that either are wrong. You know, just my views.
Right. Well, then you have cases too where people take a holiday photograph. Gee, isn't that a nice scene? They develop the film, and there's a UFO right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Right. Camera can see it. You can't.
Yeah.
So, you know, something's going on. That's it, and you can't. People know what they see. Sure, they can identify things. Yeah, they can. But when you start getting into sightings like that, it's like James Fox movie, the title. I know what I saw. Nobody's going to tell me I didn't see what I saw over that drive-in theater.
No.
Right in my face. I know what I saw. So don't try to tell me it was the Goodyear blimp or something mundane or prosaic. You know, no, you can't do that to people.
Yeah.
You might help them or suggest, but you can't come out and say, no, that's not what you saw.
No.
That's
Well, do you know, just to say we're Rendlesham momentarily, do you know there's a British base, radar base, or there was, close by, and I were lucky enough to speak to a guy that was working on radar on the base the nights of the incident. When Colonel Holt came over, I can't remember what year it was. I think it might have been 2017. Les might remember, but when he came over, when at first he were going to stay with me, the idea where he were going to stay at my home for a few days, but things happened where he couldn't. I think a bit of an illness, so he had to go somewhere else. But I was trying to line him up to speak with this British radar operator who'd never spoken about it, because he said that days after the incident, because they'd seen these objects or multiple objects at various times on radar, days after the incident, American cars came to the British base. He said they were blue and white cars, powder blue and white cars. I don't know, I can't give you any more than that. Not military personnel inside the cars, men in suits, but with enough clout to go on the base, take the tapes, take everything that they'd got. They got like a debrief, and basically, I think it frightened him from talking about it for many, many years. And he's still got more to give, but he's not. I don't think I'm going to get it. Let's put it that way. It's like what you said earlier, Scott. If you can push and push, and all you're doing is you're pushing them further into a corner that they're not going to speak. If it's going to happen, he'll come back to me. That's basically what I'm saying. But just by virtue of the fact that the British base saw the objects and the British base had the tapes removed, the radar tapes, there it tells you that there's something very real. It weren't a lighthouse or a hologram that were moving about in that forest.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, taking the tapes now, like I said, I've held a top secret clearance, top secret SCI for 18 of my 20 years, and worked in top secret equipment. Right, I've been in radio rooms with all the communications. We do the crypto and all that stuff. It's all tightly controlled. Nobody comes in the radio except the radioman and the captain. Right, they got to sign in. You got to go through this whole protocol. Nobody walks into those spaces, whether they're on a ship or on land. So from my experience, being in those rooms, if something like that would have happened while I was on watch, guys in suits just come in the door, take my equipment, take all that stuff, recordings and tapes. I've tried to put myself in that position when I hear these guys saying this. You know, these unknown guys in suits came in and took all this. I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I don't think I could have done anything, but just the fact that it's so tightly controlled, and it's my responsibility when I'm in that room or in that space, all that top secret stuff is my responsibility while I'm there. I am the man on watch, and I control all of it. Okay,
Yeah.
captain can come in and do what he wants. It's his. I'm his, right? But when I'm in there by myself, nobody comes in.
Yours, yeah.
For that to happen, what does that tell you?
Yeah. It speaks volumes, really, doesn't it? You know?
It speaks huge volumes. And take it from me, if you were in my shoes, what are you going to say to these guys? Hey, you can't do that. You know, well, they'll tell you different.
Yeah.
They'll tell you otherwise and take it. Well, that for me would say something happened here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That authority to be swept aside and me to be brushed aside. And now it's gone. Now, how is that accounted for when my relief comes to relieve me and take over? What do I do?
Mm.
What do I say? I got to ask the captain. Now what happens? I've signed for all this equipment. I've signed for all these recordings because you sign for stuff when you come on watch. Okay, I take responsibility. You're relieved. Go. That's really sticky. So when those guys like on the Nimitz said those guys came in and took that stuff, that's huge. That's giant.
All right, let's just
Volume. Something happened that went beyond the clearance of the men there.
This is interesting because I didn't realize. Obviously, I'm on about the Rendlesham, but you're telling me a very similar thing happened with the Tic Tac. Yeah. I never knew that. You see, and this is not something new that I've spoken about tonight. I've given this information to John Hansen for one of the Halt books because he's wrote the Halt Perspective. A few years ago, I gave him this information when I was trying to set up the meeting with this guy. So just you have ran that past us, but just run it past me for me being a bit dumb there. I didn't realize that that's what we were on about. You were jumping to the Tic Tacs UFO. So a similar scenario happened.
Well, you just mentioned tapes being taken and stuff. That's what led me to say that.
Right.
Because I've been in that seat before. I've never had that happen. But when I hear these reports, I immediately put on that guy's uniform, get in his shoes, and think, what if that was me?
Yeah.
Because I've been sitting there before in front of all that equipment and all that stuff, the crypto cards, and and then for somebody to tell you we were never here, and let me say, I've always read all my UFO books out in the open. Like when I was at sea, I would read my books. I was stationed at a place that had helicopter pilots. And I've always had these books out in the open. I've never been told, put that away. Shouldn't be reading that here. Or threatened with my clearance being taken away. I've never had that happen to me. And I've had pilots, some of the helicopter pilots, oh, that's interesting. Let's talk. So I've talked to helicopter pilots that have seen things they shouldn't have seen. And not real UFOs, but things in the sky that they weren't able to identify. Let me put it that way. So,
okay.
Yeah, I've never had my head put in a vice and said, stop. Don't bring that up here. You're in a top secret room. Don't talk about that. No.
Okay, Scott. Right. Well, we've just gone over the hour, and we'll just see whether Les wants to go to a break. Thank you, Scott. Brilliant. Thank you, Les.
Yeah, thanks for that, guys. Yes, we'll just go for a minute and a bit break. So everybody, if you want to get your chalk ices out, your beers out, your whatever you want for the next minute, go and get it now.
Join the stellar lineup of renowned speakers and TV personalities at the Awakening Expo, June 24th to 26th, 2022, Blackpool, UK, featuring Eric von Daniken, Giorgio A. Tsoukalos, Andrew Collins, Steve Mera, Billy Carson, Dr. Teresa Bullard-Wyke, Johnny Enoch, Paul Sinclair, Maria Wheatley, Andrew Goff, Barry Fitzgerald, Hugh Newman, and Richard Doty. Immerse yourself in 3 days of mind-blowing presentations, Q&As, panels, meet your favorite speakers, and much, much more at the Awakening Expo, June 24th to 26th, 2022, Blackpool, UK. Get your tickets now at awakeningufo.com.
Right, we're back in the room. So, Scott, I mean, we can just take it any direction you want from there, but just to stay with Rendlesham for a moment, and this witness that I were put into contact with, obviously, it makes you realise that there's lots more of them out there. Jumping to your sighting, that these witnesses from the drive-in, and that's what they are, witnesses, experiencers, victims. We don't know yet until we get more information, but they're going to be out there. But this guy who was on the British base when the Rendlesham Forest incident happened lives 6 miles away from me now in East Yorkshire. So, you know, it is, when they say it's a small world, it is a small world, because we're going back, what year were it? 1980. We're going like 42 years ago, or they're not, just under 42 years ago. And there's a guy there that spoke to me. He will have spoke to other people. I'd be lying. He's probably spoke to close friends, his wife, his family about it. But to anybody with an interest in the subject of UFOs and the unexplained, he spoke to me. I just wonder how many more. We think that these cases are exhausted. You know, Rendlesham, it's been done, it's been cooked. We've had this book, we've had that book from this guy. You know, your good friend Peter Robbins left at Eastgate with Larry Warren. We know that there's been some controversy over that book, but that, nevertheless, it takes nothing away from Peter and the work that he put into it. But there's lots more mileage in these cases. If these witnesses who've probably got just as much to tell, in some instances, would come forward. And I mean, we can stay on a few more cases if you want before we look at, you know, what about, I've not got a knowledge, Scott, of Kecksburg. Have you read about it or got any knowledge of that?
Nothing new. I really, you know, of course I've read it, and
well, I don't want you to sort of regurgitate the book, but I'm interested, if you've got time, just to give us an overview, just a few minutes for our listeners as well.
Okay. Well, the Kecksburg was an object. I think it was sighted over the Great Lakes first, came over the Lake Erie, which is about 40 miles north of me, made a little zigzag and headed over into Pennsylvania and crashed there. Crashed, landed. Apparently it crashed. And
it intrigued me because they said it was shaped like an acorn. Am I right? Or something like that?
Yeah, an acorn, and some of the witnesses swear there was writing on it that was unlike anything they've seen. They've said it was like hieroglyphics, but they weren't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's been talk that it's Russian Cyrillic, Russian language on there. And the thing is, and here we get back to, I know what I saw.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know what's acorn shaped that's going to remain intact and fly the way it did. If it was in a re-entry vehicle, it would have just come down, right? Gravity rules. Boom, down you go. Well, this thing apparently flew. Okay,
yeah.
Came down, went like this, and then ended up where it ended up. Still, it could have been not back then, back in the 60s. It couldn't have been a drone as we know it. It could have been someone else's drone.
Yeah.
Right? Possibly. And the bottom line is we don't know what it is. I think I just read a report where they really think it was a foreign, as in Russian, piece of reentry
But
material.
but
Okay.
you kind of
And that really doesn't jive with the reports of the people who saw that thing laying there.
yeah.
And there's a reason that they have a huge acorn in Kecksburg, right? With the city limit sign. They have like a memorial to it with that on there.
Right,
So
okay.
there's something weird happened there. I don't think we're gonna really find out what it was, to be honest.
No, I'm going to have to read about it, aren't I? Told you earlier, I don't read that much, to be honest. But
Look for Stan Gordon.
right.
I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah,
Stan Gordon.
yeah.
He's going to be your go-to guy on Kecksburg.
And
So-
and what was Stan Gordon's views on what it was then?
I think he thinks it might have been not ours.
Not ours.
And I've met Stan. I met Stan once, but it was back in the early 2000s. And but I haven't spoken with him since. But his views may have changed over the years. But I really think he thinks there's a mystery here. It wasn't just the military coming and picking this thing up. It was the military shutting things down. And who
Okay.
cares if you see a Russian rocket piece fall on the ground? Nobody cares.
No.
Right? What are you going to shut down the town for and tell everybody they're lying, they didn't see what they saw? You just go pick it up and take it away.
What
Right.
operation then, Scott? A veil of secrecy getting taken away, and does anybody know where it ended up or suspect where it ended up?
The suspicion is it went to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base,
Right.
which is that's probably maybe a 5-hour drive from Kecksburg to Wright-Patterson, something like that.
Mm.
It's not that far away, but that would have been the place to take it.
And I
Foreign Technology Division, right?
suppose in favour of these things being ours, you kind of think to yourself, well, if it is this absolutely, I don't know, thousands of years ahead of us intelligence and technology, why are they crashing? Do you know?
Well,
I know we can't answer that, you know.
you can answer it, but why does infallibility, why is that defined as extraterrestrial?
Yeah.
They may not be perfect. Maybe they're ahead of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it, but stuff happens,
Yeah.
right? Maybe it happens with them too. And maybe there's something about, like you, Fred, turn your radars off because it disables us, right?
Yeah.
It could be
Yeah.
something simple like that, but
Yeah.
you just don't know.
You make a good point. What are your views then on where the origins of these things? Do you think they are from outer space? Do you think, as some people think, it's interdimensional? And I hate to use the word portal, but traveling through, I don't know, thin areas, for want of a better word, or is it a mixture of everything? In your opinion?
Right now, I got to go with all the above.
Yeah,
There's two. It's like Jacques Vallée says, I'm going to be real disappointed if we find out this is just aliens.
yeah,
Right? There's too many. I mean, if you do your homework and read all these cases and look at a graph of all the different shapes and sizes, it can't just be guys from Mars and Venus. There's something else that we can't put our finger on. There's too many.
What
So,
about?
If you want to talk interdimensional, then you're unlimited.
Yeah. What about the view that it could be one thing that's presenting as many other things? I know I did. I labeled it a hive mind. So the nuts and bolts UFO guy is going to see some kind of structured craft. I know we're going into realms of fantasy with this, but I mean, let's face it, when we're looking at the subject of UFOs and listening to the accounts that people are giving us, it sounds like fantasy to many people, doesn't it? So if we're looking at structured craft, that's what they're going to see. If they're looking into lights and spheres of light, that's what they're going to see. And we're only speculating, Scott. I can't get an answer from you because I know you've not got one and I haven't. But I think we've got to throw all these possibilities in air and sort of play with them.
And that's, you just hit it right on the head. Because we don't know, we can't discard anything.
No, I would agree.
Can't discard it. You can set it aside and think, man, maybe not the way I see things, but you can't say no.
No, totally agree.
I want to come back to another point you were making about reports and stuff, and I don't think people take the time to think about this. And we have all these reports that go back, forever. Hundreds, thousands, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't think what people don't think about is the reports that aren't made. Okay. Yeah, we got a lot that people say this, that, and the other. But what about all the people that have seen something but have just never said a word about it?
Sit in silence.
I think that number is rather large.
Yeah.
Rather huge.
How many times, Scott? I mean, I don't know about you. I know you said that you looked at the books that you read openly when you were working, and but how many times have you been in company of, I don't know, friends, a group of friends? You thought, I'm not going to talk about UFOs. People might know you've got the interest, but it comes up. The subject comes up. And all of a sudden, I don't know, you might go to the toilet, go to the bar, go somewhere, and somebody comes up to you and goes, actually, because they're frightened to say it in a group of people. Do you know something? I have got something I want to tell you, but I don't want to say it talk about it. And you're spot on. There's so many people out there that's all been touched by the phenomena, and a lot of them, it might go against the religion, the entire belief system, but for whatever reason, they don't want to talk about it. I think it's opening up. I think it's getting better.
I've got these shelves here. I've got, against that wall is covered with shelves, UFO books. Okay.
Yep.
And I've, over the years, I don't do it anymore. We don't entertain like we used to and have gangs of people over here and have some fun stuff like that. But over the years, these shelves have been here, and I've had 20, 30 people in my house. How many people ask me about UFOs?
You said, do you know how many?
None.
Really?
These books are right in their face. Nobody's ever come over and say, hey, what's this? I didn't know you did this or you were interested in that. Nothing. Crickets. And it always surprised me. And these are people I know. I mean, most of the people I know have an idea that I have this interest and I've had this encounter and stuff, because I grew up here. But those same people come over here, walk right past this bookshelf like it wasn't even there. And it just floors me.
It floors you, Scott, but it says something about you as well, that you're not shoving this subject in people's faces. No. You know what I mean? Obviously, within the subject, people like to speak to you and the people who are interested, but outside of it, same with myself. I mean, I rarely talk much about the UFOs, the cryptids, or anything outside of the people that they're interested in it. But I do think myself it's opening up more. I do get people coming now who I never expected to tell me that they've seen something unusual or experienced something unusual. And I don't know whether that's happening to you, but it's happening more to me anyway.
Well, there's a reason I wear this shirt.
Yeah, ufologist.
I'll put it on purpose when we're going to go out to eat at a casual place or something like that, just to see.
Yeah.
And I see people looking at it. I know they're reading it. And I've only had one person come up, and actually it was one of the waitresses. What's that?
Would you mind taking that shirt off, please?
I see UFO. I don't know what UFO just is, so. And my first response always is, tell me what you know about this, about
Yeah.
the subject, because you can't just launch. And it's like Richard Dolan says, the learning curve in this area, it's big. It's huge. You just can't. How would I go to someone I don't know and explain that?
Impossible, isn't it?
In 15 minutes? Impossible. It's
Yeah.
impossible because one thing leads to another, and then now I've got 600 books, and it just isn't going to happen. So I always ask, what do you know? What do you know about this subject? And I'll take it from there.
Yeah. Okay, Scott. Well, we'll take it that Les might have a few questions for us. I hope he has. And
Yes,
fire some more
yeah,
at us, please, people, in capital letters, and let's test Scott's mind a little bit.
Okay, and I've got to thank everybody in the chat who has sent the questions through, and thanks to Debbie for moderating tonight. I forgot to mention her at the top of the show. Thanks, Deborah. And well, I'm going on with a question from Umbraman, and it's going back to your 1974 sighting, Scott, and he's asking about this memory loss and this Oz feeling. Is it intentional or is it a byproduct of their technology, do you think?
Yes and yes. I think it is, at least for my personal experience. I think it's intentional. I think we were shut off and something was wrapped up and tossed in the back of our head where we can't access it. And until something breaks it open, you know how people have these, now they call them downloads. Back then it wasn't. It was a download, but it wasn't. I saw that book, boom, and it just opened up, and I was like, oh, that's, and then boom, and then from there it was over. I got to read everything I can get my hands on about this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is intentional. Got to keep it down. They may not want us to see him, but when we do, they're going to try and quell it as best they can. And when we haven't even touched on abductions, right? No. What about those people? Is that certainly appears that it's intentional. These people, these others, are able to manipulate our reality.
Yeah, and work our mind. It's as though they're going through it like a filing cabinet, picking out images, picking out weaknesses, vulnerabilities. I'd honestly believe that's happening. And I wonder if it applies not just to the UFO subject, but I'll just jump into the cryptids momentarily. We've got some fabulous witnesses in Wolfland, and I always say that because it's absolutely true. But we've got two. There were three who had an experience in a forest in North Yorkshire. There's only two gone on camera. But when Jim started talking about it more to Steve afterwards, because they were traumatized at first, and I won't dwell on this because this is for you to talk, Scott, but it just sort of ties in with what you were saying. When he was telling Steve things, Steve he says it was just coming back to me as he's talking. He said, I don't know. He says, I don't know whether I'd deliberately forgotten it, didn't want to remember it. He said, but as he's saying things, it's bang, bang, it's coming back to me. So even that's a similar situation, and that's a cryptid type experience. And, I don't know how it ties in with a UFO, but...
Well, it ties in the fact that he's seen something he wasn't supposed to see. Yep. We're not supposed to see flying cardboard rectangular boxes in the sky. We're not supposed to see that. And we're not supposed to see werewolves. That's only in the movies.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to see it. So when you do see it, where do your words go?
Yeah, no vocabulary.
You don't have it. Don't have it. So in one factor, all that information gets shelved.
Yeah.
In here, we'll close that until I get more information. And then a lot of times that shelf gets closed and it never opens again.
Yeah. Well,
Unless they're prodded in some way. They see something, they hear something, or they're talking to somebody, and then
it comes back. Yeah.
All the files come out. Right.
You said something earlier when you talked about Kecksburg, and regardless, I suppose, of whether it's man-made or something other, but you said that the witnesses who described seeing it, saw some kind of writing on it, and they couldn't quite describe it. Now,
Right.
do you know, if I know, everybody, I think, if we saw some kind of writing that were a foreign language, we'd say, I think it might have been Arabic, or it could have been Hindu, or do you know what I'm saying? But for them to be saying, well, just the strangest, I can't describe it. That's telling as well, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. It is. You have to, when you're investigating or interviewing, the first thing you got to do is listen to what they're telling you. All right, you listen. That's the best thing anybody can do, is open these things up and let them talk. All right, because that's where you're going to get the rawest information. Right, you're going to get it right now. He's talking and he's remembering. Right, everything after that is where you really have to be careful. You don't want to add to it. You don't want to take away from it. You want to take the raw report and run with it as best you can. I saw a werewolf. I saw a werewolf. Who am I going to tell?
Yeah.
Who am I going to tell? I saw a UFO. I saw this thing over a drive-in theater. I tell everybody who wants to know now. Back then, it was just shut off.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I honestly don't have an answer for that. It was just gone. I don't remember leaving the drive-in theater. I don't remember talking to my friend going, "Holy crap, did you see that? What did that?" There's none of that. None.
I wonder if there's a reason for that. Could be that if you did get this recall right away, and an whole theatre full of people got the recall right away, it would create a ripple. It would create reports, and it would create, I don't know, people asking questions. If that happened every time, then we might be a lot further on with the subject and the disclosure, should we say, than we are today.
I'm in total agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't happen that way.
No.
Not usually. You have the sighting at Fatima in Spain.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
70,000 people saw something. That's a lot. But back then, they didn't have our frame of reference we have today. Flight was pretty new, probably pretty non-existent in Spain at that time. So that's the exception. It's usually not like that. It's usually, maybe one or two, maybe just a single witness. But that's what happens. It gets turned off or stamped on somehow, stomped.
Yeah, suppressed. Yeah. Right. We'll see if Leslie's got another question for us then, Scott, please.
Yes, Patricia Adams writes, welcome to the show, Patricia. And I know we talked about this earlier on, Scott. She's asking, how about contacting the local paper and inserting a small ad in the paper? I guess she's talking about collating witnesses from the 1974 sighting, Scott.
I've also considered that. I didn't get back. When I left here, I had my sighting in 74 and I left in the service in 79. And other than coming back to see my folks here and there during those 20 years, I wasn't around here. Otherwise, I think things might have been different. I might have called the paper, I have looked in the newspaper for stuff, but I might have done something like that. I know Sasha Christie even told me I should get a burner phone and leave that number, so if things get wild and crazy, I could just get rid of that phone and deal in. And that's a great idea, and I may go there. What gives me heart, though, is that email that Ryan Sprague got, because I have that email, and I saw what that guy saw in your book. I saw that, and I wish she would
Come forward.
reemerge and talk to me about it.
Yeah.
I told, I'm not going to spill your name out all over the place. It's going to be between me and you. If you give me validation, that'll be it. I'll be happy, right? So, it's still under consideration. And that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Thank you. When I wrote Night People, I was trying to recall all the events that had happened from childhood to well, basically present day. Well, up to a few years ago. But I couldn't get an age for when I saw when it started, and I thought I was 4 or 5 years old, and I just couldn't. Obviously, a child's not going to have that age, but all I know is that my dad woke me up to look at a UFO, and I've talked about this for years, near the power station at a place called Mexborough, which will be about half a mile from where we were looking. Huge sphere of light beside the cooling towers. And I found out this week, and John Hanson's on the case. I said John's got the biggest archive. A guy called Stephen, and if he's listening to this, I don't know whether he does, but he's told me that he had a newspaper report that he'd sent to John Hanson from the South Yorkshire Times, which would have been the paper, the neighbouring town from where I viewed this object, 1967. So we know a 5-year-old. The UFO outside of the power station, the South Yorkshire Times has actually got that report. Anybody from Mexborough or surrounding area, please get to archive for me and find me the report. We can actually date it for a month. So I know how much you're craving this information, because that's just validated what I've been talking about for years. I can't see it not being the same object. If it, you know what, do you know what I mean? So yeah, fabulous.
The other problem is, and any one of the listeners want to email me with ideas, feel free, is what would I write without giving it away so that I would know you were there, right? I don't give away the information and then get 500 calls. Oh yeah, I saw that. Oh yeah,
Right. Well, without saying it, Scott, what film were you, Scott? What film were you watching? Don't say it, but do you know?
I know the films.
Yeah, well, that would be a start, wouldn't it? We were watching such and such a film, and you think, yeah.
Why is it that I remember those films and I don't remember anything else?
No, I don't know, mate.
By God, I know those films. It's just like, why did that stick?
Yeah,
and they were consequential. I really didn't want to watch the movies. I wasn't there for that, to be honest. We were trying to hook up with some ladies. So, yeah, but I remember the movies.
So, I mean, there's the starter, and that's, if they can remember that, they're going to put themselves in that place, because what's the chance of them just plucking out a random movie? So, yeah, you can see how much this has grabbed you, Scott. It really has, hasn't it? Let's jump to another question, Les.
Yeah, thanks for that, Scott. Umbraman is asking, does Scott feel his driving sighting was a positive or negative or neutral intent or observation?
For me, it's been positive. Like I said, I was in awe of this thing. I was ready to bow down to it. It was overpowering because it was so big and so low. I almost want to go to your knees, right? But like I said, I was never scared. I was never frightened. None of that. It's always been just like, oh, wow. What was that? And to this day, when I think about it, it's like, what was that? What could that have been at that time? And I don't think it was from here, whatever it was. Not that big,
No.
that big. Silent, black, no lights, no sound, nothing. It was just there.
The ability to just put the electricity out. Did it stop car engines?
What's that?
Did it stop the car engines? Were there any engines running?
Nobody left.
No, no. Well, the engines would have been turned off, I'm imagining, while you're watching film anyway, were they?
That's my assumption. Otherwise, people would have been leaving in droves, I think. Some people, anyway.
Okay.
But,
Right. Fabulous. Les?
Yeah.
Yeah, a question from Love One. Is it Love One? Love One. Love One. Right, Scott, have you had any other sightings since the one in 1974?
I have, but I have a picture of it right here that I drew, and I'm going to hold it up.
Okay.
Can you see that?
And we can see it, yeah. Yep.
All right. This is last summer, right about this time. I was taking the garbage out for pickup the next morning. Nobody was on the street, nothing. It's just, I was the only one out there. Beautiful night. I go down, I put the garbage in the bin, turn around to come back to the house, and I look up. Why'd I look up? I don't know. This was there. It was about 3 yards long, looked like a long stick with a tiny body on it, and what I took to be an eyeball, right in the middle.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was blinking. It looked like this thing was looking at me, okay? And it just hovered there. And I just stood there and stared at it, and it was maybe 25 feet up, something like that. It was pretty close.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to it. My words were, "What are you doing here?" Then it moved a little bit this way, it moved a little bit that way, and then it just, all of a sudden, it was down at the end of the street. Boom, it was there, which is maybe 6 houses that way. Okay.
Silent.
I'm watching it, and it's just down at the end of the street. Then it goes across the street. Boom. It's like it disappeared and reappeared, right? So I'm thinking, I'm thinking like I am at the drive-in. What is this? There's nobody out. No kids out here flying drones, none of that. There's never been a drone over my head. Never. I even asked the kids at the end of the street. Yeah, no, we didn't fly drones. No. So then it goes from across the street, it comes right back down the street, across the street from me, and stops. And the only way I can say it is it's looking at me. Okay. And I'm just frozen. I'm watching this thing. And then in a blur, like a purple and blue blur, I could see like a tail or a exhaust, for want of a better word. Gone and disappeared over the trees at the end of the street. I mean, it was fast. In the blink of an eye, it was gone. I have no idea. I wrote about this for the Ohio Mufon newsletter, and I posted these pictures up there because I'm asking, what is it? And I'm going to be 99.9% sure it was not a drone. Not as fast as it moved.
Totally silent, Scott. What it silent?
Totally silent.
Yeah.
Just.
Are them colours a representation of it?
It was these colors. It
Yeah.
was blue with a little purple circle right in
Yeah.
the middle of it. And it seemed to blink like that. I don't know what it was. I don't know what that was. And it wasn't very big, but it was 3 yards, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
It was big enough to notice. And normally there's people out, in my neighborhood doing their thing like that. I was by myself at that time. That thing showed up when nobody else was out here.
Yeah.
That's really strange. That's really strange.
It's
I
almost
have no
like
idea.
nine. Yeah.
I have no idea what that was. Somebody checking up on me? I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's strange, isn't it? Yeah, could it have been military? It's hard to say. I guess we'll never know. Scott, you touched on earlier that any suggestions for how you could re-establish contact with anybody that were there? Have you got an email address that you want to give anybody, or would you rather give it off air, or any contact information while we're at this point?
No, you can email me. I'm not up. My email is Scott, SCOTT 55, the figures 55, and my last name Santa, SANTA, just like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
At gmail.com.
Excellent.
Scott55Santa at gmail.com. Sure, email me questions, whatever. I'm happy to correspond with everybody.
That's cool. Thank you. Yeah, and we'll get to a few more questions because we're winding up. We're sort of running out of time, Les. So let's get these questions used up for Scott and then the people.
Yeah, fine. Actually, Scott, I've got a question of my own here, and you talked about looking for somebody in your area about doing regression.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, because of all these what have passed by, is it something that you may fear rather than welcome, the result of a regression?
Yes. There's some trepidation. There's some hesitancy for that. I've asked some other people in the field for recommendations, and really the ones that are doing it, that are familiar with UFOs, like Yvonne, her name escapes me. People who are doing that, they're all out on the West Coast somewhere, If there was somebody here local within reasonable driving distance, I'd be willing to do that. It's like I want to know, I want to scratch that itch back there.
Yeah.
But what if I don't like what I find out?
Well,
and so
something tells me that you're going to do it if you get a chance, aren't you?
I think if I'm comfortable with the person that I'm going to be working with, I think I would just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm starting to edge into the twilight of my life here, and I think enough time's gone by where I think I could handle it, and I think I'm ready. So we'll see what happens.
Watch this space. Go on then, Les.
Yeah, Ralph Winter is asking how many UFO books has Scott got in his collection?
I've never counted them, believe it or not. I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 full shelves here, and I've got 2 boxes full of paperbacks. Some of those paperbacks are like first editions. They never came out in hardcover, right? So I kind of keep those out of the air, kind of as preserved. And I couldn't even begin to guess. It's in the hundreds. Let me put it that way.
And do you have files as well? Have you got any paperwork?
I do have files, but I don't have a filing cabinet for them. They're in boxes as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for that, Scott. V. McCrinnan is asking how many dumbbell-shaped UFOs has Scott seen reports of, and how rare are they in that kind of shape?
I think that they lean onto the rare side. Now, there are reports of dumbbells. It's like referring back to what I said earlier. There's so many different shapes and sizes of reports. It's almost impossible. You can't narrow it down and say, it's all come from the same place, because obviously I don't think they do. Just because they're different. They're big, they're small. Some are this small. There's reports of little people flying little saucers. And then you have giants.
Yeah.
And so dumbbells are in the literature. Yes, they are. And I think that, like I said, leans toward the rare side of things, but they're there. But again, the learning curve is huge on UFOs. You have to have the intent and willingness to do your homework, dig in. One thing always leads to another. You're never going to be without material. You put it that way. Never.
Great question, V.
Even the books you read, you're gonna read them again.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that question, V. Umbraman has got another question in tonight, and he's asking, does Scott think having the first experience makes him somehow more likely to see more events? I think you touched on that with your recent sighting, really, haven't you, Scott?
I tend to think that is yes. I think that once you see something, the likelihood of you having another experience goes up.
Do you think, Scott, a lot of that could be because, and I don't know, but a lot of that could be because once you've seen it, and there's no mistaking what you saw. I mean, anybody, it wouldn't matter who sat in front of you and told you what you'd seen. You know what you saw, but now your mind's opened up. You know it's out there. So do you think that the knowing allows you to see more? I don't even know if I'm using right words here, but I think you know what I mean.
I think that once you have an encounter or see something, even if it's werewolves, once you have that, you're always going to be looking. From that point on, I'm always looking up. I'm always watching the skies. It's always there. When I go out and it's a nice night or even during the day, I'm always head on a swivel looking, because a lot of times these things show up. You don't even know they're there. There's no sound, no nothing. And like you said, you go out and have a cigarette or smoke your pipe, you just step out on the back porch, boom, something's there. You didn't know it was there. You may have been standing there for 10 minutes while it's looking at you. You had no idea it was there until you looked up. So yeah, and that helps with your probabilities in that sense. Once you start looking, you do. I don't care who you are. You may not want to see it again, but you're looking.
Yeah, and like you said, it's you're narrowing down the odds of seeing things. We'll see what Les has got to ask us now. Come on, Les.
Oh, yeah, Umbraman has got another question in. Does the film, the film that you saw in the drive-in, has that triggered any more memories for you, Scott? So has the film any relation as triggering any more memories from that event?
No, I only associate it with that night, but no, it doesn't. If I see that film like on YouTube or referenced somewhere and stuff, of course, that's what I'm going to think. That movie was playing when I had my encounter. I'm going to go right there all the time. But
that's all.
That way, yeah, I'm going to go there every time whenever I think of those movies. But
okay, thanks for that, Scott. Got a question from David for Paul. Hi, Paul. When is Wolflands going to be released?
Good question. I think you could have asked Les or myself that. We've just redone the promo, haven't we, Les, this week, and that'll be getting played at the Awakening conference, and I would imagine after that we'll put that out for people to look at. And we're very close. I mean, we keep saying we're very close, people, but please understand that there's only me and Les doing this, and he's got a lot of commitments. I have. That's no excuse. I mean, we had 10 hours on it last week, just in one day, and then we're having hours on it every day. 10 hours actually out in the field, should we say. Then I spent some time in forest at the weekend gathering a bit of footage. Then we're having hours on it most days of the week. Les is doing the bulk of the editing. I'm there assisting with it because I haven't got those skills. But soon, I likened it to if it were a 100-page book, I'm sure we must be 90 pages in. Does that answer your question? Probably not, but we're very close. And let's just hope the proof's in the pudding and it can stand up on its own 2 feet without me talking about it constantly. I think it will.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that, Paul. And I've got to echo entirely what you said there, Paul, because, yeah,
Very good.
everything you said is correct. I'll move on with another question. A few more questions here. I think there's 3 left on this list. Aidan Gregg, welcome to the show, Aidan, and hope you're enjoying it. I hope everybody's enjoying it tonight. We've got to really fight off some competition there in the celebrations that are happening this weekend. But
So, yeah.
thanks for joining us on tonight's stream. Everybody's welcome. So, Scott, any speculations about why UFO and high strangeness phenomena take such variable forms? I'll just carry on with the question. It might be all linked up. E.g., UFOs, all shapes and sizes, but geometric cryptids, lots of creatures, mixes of creatures, but animalistic. If you can understand that one.
Well, what better way to create confusion than to create confusion by overwhelming the subject with variants that it's impossible to put your finger on.
Yeah.
So I think there's an intent. There's an intent for that. If it was just invaders from Mars, we'd already know, right?
Yeah.
I think there's an intent to create confusion. Now you got to, instead of thinking of 1, you're thinking of 500. And what better way to confuse the issue than to confuse the issue with more. Yeah.
At the Awakening, I'll be talking about the documentary. It relates to what you're saying here, Scott. But if people think it's just going to be a cryptid-related talk at the conference, you would be wrong. Primarily, it will be cryptids, but I want to show that there's other phenomena presenting in the same areas within the same time frames. And we've incorporated that into the documentary as well. Obviously, that's, and, you know, because the light form phenomena is there, in some instances, just a few days apart from seeing the cryptids. So confusion, because they shouldn't be related. I don't think that there's a cryptid flying about in a sphere of light, but something is enabling these things to present. And I haven't got the answer to what the something is, but there we go. Is there any more you want to add to that, Scott? Or shall we go with another question?
No, okay. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, and that was David's next question, Paul. What was the topics you'll be discussing at the Awakening conference in Blackpool?
Right, Les. Well, we've just kind of done that.
Yeah, you've just done that one. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So back to Scott. Let's have some more for Scott because.
Umbra Man, has Scott tried to initiate contacts with the phenomena, and if so, by what methods?
Funny he should ask that. I'm having some deck work up back here. When the deck is finished, my wife and I are going to purposefully set out, and I don't know if I'll follow the CE5 protocols to the letter, but Whitley Strieber says if you put the intent out there, you might be surprised at what you get. So we are going to relax out back, just us, with some intent, maybe for half an hour at a stretch, and just see what happens. So I'm going there. I haven't done it yet.
Right. Brilliant.
That's brilliant. And on that note, that was my last question for tonight. So if you want to talk a little bit more, you two guys, for a few minutes, you can do.
Well, we're just about there, but how do you think we could break the stigma attached to the subject, Scott? What could we do to make it more open? And I've asked you, and I haven't got a clue.
Yeah. They're doing stuff like this. I put it out there without actually putting it out there, and I wait to get a response. So it's You know, you just can't go out and stand on a soapbox and start talking UFOs.
No.
So I'll put on a ball cap with maybe, you know, the alien on it, or the little gray, or wear this shirt. I'm going to a specific place. And so it's an awareness thing. It's just putting that awareness out there and seeing if somebody might be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Or I've been looking for you for my whole life. You know, I want to talk to you. So that's the way to do it. Try to do it subtle and as non-forceful as you can. Just put it out there and see what happens. I don't think there's a specific formula to do it. You got to do it how you're comfortable doing it.
Great answer. And do you think then any one, I wouldn't say one person, but as a collective or organization are actually sitting on the truth?
No.
Okay.
No, I certainly don't. I do think that the United States government knows more than it's saying.
Yep.
I think it knows more, but I don't think it has the answer. Let me put it that way.
So then
They've had too many military encounters over the years to just come out and say there's nothing there. You can't. That's a lie. That is a bald-faced lie. So they know more.
Is that a dog that you're stroking there, Scott?
Yes, this is my little girl Mabel over here. She's over here trying to chew on electric cord.
All right, it's not a good idea. Right, last question then. Who do you think's, as a collective or as a singular, who's broken new ground within the subject of unexplained phenomena within the last few years, 10 years?
Well, you know, that's a tough one. I'm going to say that I don't want to use the word fan.
No.
Because I'm not, but I have huge respect for Richard Dolan.
Yeah.
As far as the UFOs go. He, mainly because he's able to speak what I think and am not able to speak. He puts it out there and I think, God, I was thinking that, but I wasn't able to put it in those words.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
You know, and so now that he's been doing this full time, this is what he does full time, 24/7, 365 days a year. He's studying, he's reading, and he's presenting. So he leads and I will follow him because he puts his nose to that grindstone and he goes, you know, and he does it every day.
Yeah.
Every day. I'm a member of his website, Richard Dolan Members, and there is a ton of stuff on there. And it has a forum that you can discuss, you know, with other people on there. So I'm there a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's really broken it open, you know, per se, one person. But there's, you know, people ask me, why don't you write a book? You got all these books. It's like, what am I going to write that hasn't already been written? I don't want to write something that's the best of UFOs, you know.
Yeah.
There would be no purpose in that.
Well, that's a great answer. And I just want to put a little plug in for myself. Anybody who wants to visit our website, truthproof.uk, new reports going on it. I wouldn't say every day, but quite regularly. They're put up there by Don Lodge, who runs the website. And I think we're about out of time. Scott, it's just been a pleasure speaking to you. We've been friends a long time on the internet, and it's just brilliant to be able to finally get to speak to you. And I think I speak for Les and everybody else. Thank you very much.
I had a wonderful time. Thank you. It was an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I got to thank Scott Santer and Paul Sinclair for a great show tonight, and hope you enjoyed the show also. Thanks for all the questions that came in tonight, and I know some people had some computer issues, but you know, we never got that question out. I'm sorry, it was Warren Hardcastle, I think. But I think if you go back, rewind, Warren, the answer to your question lies in what was said earlier on in the stream. But thank you for your question anyway. So, with that, hope everybody enjoys the rest of the weekend. Hope everybody comes back to watch our next live stream. On that note, we'll see you next time. Bye.